After padding, I'm somehow expected to believe that blizzards keep a chaos tracker device from working. It doesn't rely on a satellite. There's a lot of padding after this. Why would I care about them being in a bar for shelter? They don't need shelter from the cold when they've already got all those coats on and made no indication of being really cold. I hate how the people in the bar are stereotypically scary looking just because they're in a bar, with even an old lady knitting a shawl with an axe splitting a skull. Tails was smart to want to leave, especially since there's no reason they couldn't just run for a few seconds at supersonic speed and instantly find another place to find shelter. And Sonic keeps them from leaving with no convincing argument in favor of it. Just because it's Siberia doesn't mean there's going to be one building with nothing around it for 6,000 miles, especially not a bar. Why would they put a place of business in a place with nothing else around it for 1 billion miles? That's just not good business sense. There's more padding. Sonic somehow thinks he knows a Russian word, and Tails uses a gizmo with a spinning speaker at his center and talks into it so it can translate into Russian, which would only work through mind reading. It was smart of him to know to order beef stews. How did he know what to pick? Sonic calls the gadgets cool and gets told he invented them, and after some padding, he says that's pretty impressive. With a clatter sound, 2 bowls of grey slop land on the table before them, even though the only way the translator would work would be by reading the mind so that it knows what you're imagining when you're talking, because he's never actually been to Russia before. After padding, Tails notices some fish bones in his soup. There's no way this would have happened. It's clearly unfortunate implications based on where they are. There's no way the translator messed up either. It gets used again, and this time it offends the waitress by messing up again. This is ridiculous. After some padding where the story somehow repeats itself, Sonic and Tails get exposed by their coats being torn at somehow ridiculously easily. After padding, Tails flips through the screen of another device pulled from his bag of tricks and shouts a word that makes the crowd stop and immediately have a different expression. After padding, Sonic gets told Tails challenged them all to a dance battle to resolve disputes. That's unrealistic and wouldn't save them. This is cringeworthy. This is such a worthless, blatant padding scene that would only be watched to see how bad it is. This is so cartoony. They would have just super speed gone the map and gone out there at super speed, and then in seconds found a warm, safe place to go for shelter. Sonic's not above hiding in somebody's house. And people say the wedding scene is bad. Why did nobody talk about this? There's nothing to say for a long time after this. There's no reason that the jukebox would have American music just so Sonic can dance to it. There's no reason there would even be a 1950s style jukebox in a 2020s film just because it's in a Russian bar. I thought everyone knew they were no less advanced in technology than us. Eventually, Tails uses a holographic gadget to project images of Sonic dancing everywhere in the bar. That's nice, but I already saw Techno the Canary make something that did that. Why did he even bother to make this gadget? And somehow, this results in every tough customer in the bar throwing up. So after padding where the narration repeats itself, Sonic gets the map. After padding, Sonic and Tails lounge in a back corner in the empty building. Tails thanks him, and after padding, he's called Pal and lied to that he knows everything about Earth to reassure him. Naturally, Tails doubts he really means he's his pal that quickly. Which makes sense because earlier he said he didn't trust Tails and they only knew each other for a day. Tails reassured and called Buddy, and he hugs Sonic fiercely. Unfortunately, he's told to take it easy. Why are they writing him like this again? He's not Sonic anyways. They could have known that he didn't hug Tails back in Forces, which Sega of Japan forced the writers not to do because they don't know how to appeal to Westerners. So once again, it's so obsessed with trying to make him look cool, it makes him look heartless. Like by pal, he only meant lackey. Sega had no say over the first film, so it couldn't be blamed for the second one. Tails really doesn't need to apologize when it's Sonic who's being written like dog shit. I like that Tails wipes a tear away to give more empathy to him from the audience, because this is actually deserved, as he goes on to explain his backstory. Sonic relates to him about it, so at least he takes advantage of the fact that he's got the wrong backstory. But in short, I know that feeling doesn't make up for all the thefts that got swept under the rug because of it. After Tails states the obvious, he says that he was inspired by Sonic because he was weird and a legend for it, so he wondered if being weird wasn't so bad. This is literally the same motivation I think Starline has for why he started to like Eggman. Maybe he wasn't known for doing bad things at first. After padding, the narration has Sonic acknowledge in his head that he couldn't have come this far without him, and only then does he say he's glad Tails is here. This makes it less heartwarming and more user of him. After padding, they go to sleep with the blanket they apparently had, and Tails' tails wrap around Sonic. That's sweet, and thankfully he isn't told to stop. So that's fine, but not a hug apparently. It could make sense that the blanket was in Tails' bag. I guess the gadgets he put in there are surprisingly small for so much to fit in there. When it gets to the next noon, the snowstorm stops, so now they can get back to searching. Their search would be done much faster if Sonic ran around instead of holding Tails while he's flying. After padding, they go into a cave, and Tails turns on a flashlight of some kind. In front of them, ornate carvings of owl warriors fighting spiny-haired people cover the walls. Humans would have discovered this and wondered why the natives made it. The word ornate was redundant. The narration makes it clear that Sonic's uncomfortable seeing it because it reminds him of Longclaw's death. Why does Tails waste his time stating the obvious again? He says these two species have been fighting for centuries, and Sonic says like Vin Diesel and The Rock, which doesn't match the tone, and the narration explains he's trying to cover up the discomfort he felt. Tails reveals that now Knuckles is the last echidna left, because of writer cowardice. This is at least taken advantage of for the first time in the franchise, because Sonic feels bad for him for being all alone. But his life was nothing like his because he didn't have to hide. What do you mean all alone? He would feel sorry that easily for someone who strangled him. After some padding, Sonic notices symbols on an owl statue that match the ones on his map, and he eventually turns the stone versions of them to match the map. The emerald carving lights up green along with the eyes of the great owl, and the sound of ancient stones grinding together echoes as the owl's chest opens up with ice and dust floating off its wings, and from the chest floats what's eventually revealed to be a compass. Good thing every archaeologist and splunker would have discovered this beforehand, had too much respect for historical relics to get this compass first, or even put it in a museum. The heroes didn't have to do anything special to get to this. There weren't any traps in the way. I wouldn't be talking about this if it didn't take place on Earth. As the light from the owl fades, the compass glows. There's pointless narration, and it reveals a big map of the Earth. Expansive wasn't needed, just say big. After padding, Sonic sees a red dot on Tails and tackles them to protect them from the laser sight of Eggman's drones. They run through a cave with drones flying after them. Eggman's drones are amazingly fast for keeping up with someone at the speed of sound when they were made before he met him. That's amazing. The narration states the obvious, and a small missile goes over their heads and strikes the arch that made the cave's entryway. Why hadn't they already gone out of the cave before they got trapped in it? Sonic can run at over 700 miles per hour. He didn't run to get to the owl statue. He wasn't far away from the entrance. There's padding after this. Eggman bursts through the ice sheets that were trapping them while riding an Eggmobile with turrets and whatever. After padding, Knuckles gets to the ground near Sonic and tries to get the compass. Sonic wonders how they are tracked down, and eventually is told he tracked them down because he apparently had a cell phone with him, which should have been established earlier. It makes sense that he'd want Tom to be able to instantly call him instead of worrying because he didn't call him back. And maybe he'd need his help. But I'm disappointed because I thought he would have tracked them down because of the magic in Sonic. He had Sonic's quill. In last film he tracked them down using it. After padding, at least Sonic consults that it's hard to take Eggman seriously with impossible snotsicles in his mustache and insults him for showing up in an open canopy. After padding, a missile aims at Sonic, and after a while, it turns out it hit the statue. It says 1,000 years of history gone, but the Alice and Echidnas had only been fighting for centuries. After padding, Sonic tells Eggman to stuff it, which is weak. And as a blue energy crackles around him, he spins into a ball and jumps towards Eggman and ricochets between drones and uncurls and grabs a wide piece of drone shell to slice it into Eggman's instruments. He eventually bursts through a final sheet of thin ice and into the open air. Eventually, Sonic uses the drone shell as a snowboard down the mountain. After redundant narration, Knuckles crunches the drone into his snowboard as well. Finally, Sonic points out that Knuckles is too angry, which he wasn't when he first showed up in the franchise. But he's justified in being mad in this film, so it's not out of character. For the same reason, maybe I was a little too hard on Sonic X Knuckles, thinking he was too much of a hothead. It's just that they put him in situations where of course he'd be mad. He's been looking for the Master Emerald for years, so he would be impatient to get it by now. I can't remember any other time that Knuckles snowboarded, so that's new. After padding, Knuckles starts hitting the mountain to push himself closer to Sonic, and he again falls to freeze as he digs his way right on top of Sonic. Tails says up here above Sonic's head, and Sonic throws it, and eventually Eggman takes it away. I'm glad someone as immature as Eggman was written to use the word haters. The word gets abused against people with accurate criticisms just for mentioning them. It should only be reserved for people with stupid reasons to hate something, or people completely making a temper tantrum out of extremely minor things. He pilots his way into another deep cave. It didn't need to say it was deep. They follow, and there's more padding where Eggman gives a surprisingly edgy threat to Tails where he says he'll stuff his tails and hang them on his wall. If this happened in Archie, people would be mocking it for years to come. Because it happened in something that everyone decided to stan, I never heard anyone talk about it. It's obviously good for a villain to talk like this, especially the main one, but you should treat everything equally. Tails just lies that he's breaking up and his tech has a glitch, being surprisingly brave enough to taunt him in the face of that. His life really toughened him up. He uses his tool belt to take control of the Eggmobile. Why does this never happen in the games? The game Tails has to be implied to be incapable of this because he never does this. Tails calls his mustache creepy, pretending he's an amusement park ride announcer, and eventually makes the Eggmobile go upside down to get the compass from him. After padding where Eggman whines a lot, he presses a button to send missiles out of the very same Eggmobile I thought was taking control of, so one blows up next to Tails. Why wasn't the Eggmobile controller able to prevent Eggman from doing that? So this was forced drama. The most criticized aspect of the entire film, where Tails gets put out of commission in a film where he doesn't get enough character moments or bonding moments with Sonic, was not only blatantly unnecessary, but also kind of forced. We already knew he cared about him, we didn't need him to get hurt. I guess he didn't have any rings. It doesn't convince anybody that Eggman's really a threat, because nobody thought anyone else would get hurt after that. Because then the movie couldn't have ended well for Sonic. It says Sonic's still taking a pummeling. An unconscious Tails rolls down the snowy mountain towards the cliff. After padding, a stray boulder barrels out of the cave and hits Sonic's satchel. So I have to assume that happens because of a missile hitting the wall of the cave. The bag flops open, so the rings fall into a pit so deep that it's dark. Knuckles reaches for the compass at the cliff's edge, and it says Sonic had to make the hardest decision of his life, save the compass or Tails. Then it says it wasn't a choice at all, and he saves Tails. And after padding, Sonic gets threatened by an avalanche, and the narration won't shut up about it, and then it goes to Tom's point of view at the worst time. Why did the film writers think anyone would want to see this? It was taking so long to show me Tom's point of view that I thought the writer would know better. So it's all padding. I only mentioned the forced writing and what's good. Why was Tom feeling jet-lagged when he got here by portal? Tom has to leave the wedding to do a video call with Sonic, where after Sonic stupidly says he needs help instead of what he needs him to do, he begs him to use the ring to save him from an avalanche. Somehow Tom says he doesn't know where he is, as if that would prevent him from saving him, when he can see what's behind Sonic, and already knows how to make the ring work. Eventually it turns out the ring is on Rachel's finger, because somehow he confused the ring and a diamond ring. It would have been instantly noticed that there wasn't a diamond on the ring by everyone. So because Sonic needed Tom to save him from Eggman, Tom has to embarrass himself by eventually saying he needs that ring. And the bride and groom are inexplicably assholes in front of the whole wedding who just respond with a death threat instead of humoring him or even asking why like normal people would. So Tom ends up punching the groom out, causing the ring to go flying. He lucks out enough to catch it in the air and throw it, and a portal opens in the middle of the aisle that spews out the avalanche into the faces of the 4 shades-wearing men that were glaring at him. When the portal fades away, Tom sees Sonic land on the snow that now occupies half the wedding stage. After pointless narration, Tom and Maddie rush to Sonic's side and ask if he's okay. After patting where he uncomfortably tries to ground him from TV for a year, when he knows full well Sonic the Spire would just watch TV at a different house anyways. Sonic almost immediately gets to explain what's going on, so it could have been worse. But he still should have done it instantly instead of telling him to listen to him when he's in trouble, since he might not have. After some padding, the guy who gave Tom the walkie-talkie shows up, but apparently he was actually Commander Walters and only lied about his name. Well, that's needlessly confusing, especially to anyone who just read the book, who would have been picturing Agent Stone. Why did he lie to him? He says he represents Gun and says it was created after Sonic's blackout to protect Earth from aliens. Wouldn't that just be the military's job? They can do it too. He flashes a badge to prove it, and Maddie mocks the games by asking who would call a spy organization Gun, because somehow that doesn't seem real, as if there aren't any non-subtle acronyms in the real world. It's so ridiculous that Walter thinks he has any chance as a normal human of capturing someone who can run at the speed of sound and create electricity. Sonic could have just run away carrying Tails the whole time he was talking. He had no reason to listen to him. This is worse than Wile E. Coyote's chances. Walter states the obvious about why he's here. He says this was a sting operation to draw Sonic out of hiding, even though he had no possible way of knowing Sonic would come here, and Sonic had no reason to come here to a boring wedding. It's only because of an occurrence that just happened to occur on this specific hour that the plan worked the way he wanted it. There's no way the plan would be this dumb, just because he said sting operation. Eventually the bride jumps to the conclusion that her groom was a secret agent and didn't tell her and beats him mercilessly, which is abusive. He was a shitty boyfriend for not telling her. He had no reason not to when she doesn't give a shit about Tom. But this was disproportionate, and if the genders were reversed, it wouldn't have been in a kid's story. Walter says that's correct instead of telling anyone to get her off of him. I guess he's just evil. And he says somehow even the priest was a fabrication. After Walter repeats his own exposition, arms move from the snow mound of an avalanche, and the groomsmen walk up to them with blasters ready, when really they'd be too crushed by all the weight of the solid, heavy avalanche to move. It didn't have to have it so that the snow would hit them. The avalanche could have gone somewhere harmless instead, and then this wouldn't be forced. Sonic clutches Tails and doesn't run away while doing so, somehow. Tom doesn't explain how they're making a mistake, so he wasted his breath. It's cool that he slugs every agent in sight and starts wrestling. After pointless narration, somehow Sonic and Tails get a net shot at them because Sonic didn't run away, when running's what he's known for. Somehow, Walters doesn't get the hint that Eggman's not dead from the fact that he was told he should be protecting the world from him out of nowhere. Maddie says Eggman's back and Sonic's the only one who could stop him. And conveniently, Walters believes her this time and says into his wrist communicator that he wants him bound. Why doesn't Sonic spin dash out of the net, go in a circle to knock down anyone who'd stop him, and then pick up Tails and run away? There's a lot of padding, especially as I waste my time with a boring villain scene for no reason. Eventually, Knuckles and Eggman go through a portal onto the peak of a rocky island. I wish they called it Angel Island. Eventually, a stone marker protrudes out from the grass in front of them. It's good that the narration says Eggman hates nature since that's in character from the very beginning. He's usually just so mediocre in the story. When he's outright bad, I point it out. Usually he's just acting like expected, in a boring, unamazing sort of way. After more boredom, Knuckles puts the compass into a wide divot in a stone and turns it, causing the island to rumble. A whirlpool forms around it, and the ocean drains away around them, seeming to drain away his padding. Eventually, Eggman says Archimedes would be floating in his grave right now. That's confusing, because there was a Sonic character called that. Why is he saying Archimedes? After padding, a massive hidden structure has them holding its peak as it's rising. Eventually, Knuckles jumps into a crevice on the still rising island's rock base. After padding, Eggman uses the Eggmobile to follow Knuckles into an elaborate labyrinth. What labyrinth isn't elaborate? There's more boring narration. Oh, I guess the reason they don't just fly over the labyrinth in the Eggmobile is that the labyrinth's walls are too high, so there wouldn't be enough room for the Eggmobile. And Eggman's too heavy for Knuckles to climb the wall while he's on his back and glide over everything. He may have super strength, but he'll still hate the sheer weight on his back. There's more boring narration. At least his spear fires out of the wall to destroy one of his 3 drones. But all these traps seem so stereotypical. After more padding, Eggman used his last remaining drone to scan so that it'd figure out every trap in the place, which took hours. It's good that they had to deal with the labyrinth being hot and humid. With a glowing super punch, Knuckles breaks through a stone wall. Super and stone are redundant there. Eventually the dust settles to reveal the Master Emerald. Why waste time calling it green and the cavern grand? Knuckles says it last, and when Eggman says ultimate power, somehow Knuckles doesn't beat him to unconsciousness at this point because of it again being blatantly obvious that he's evil. Why does he think Eggman is still worth keeping around? I mean, he glared at him for saying that friendship makes you weak or whatever, so he wouldn't like him anymore after that. So Eggman's victory over him is going to be completely unimpressive. After redundant narration, I'm somehow expected to believe that in intergalactic society, there's no crime greater than keeping a creature in a cage. It just reminds me of the Sonic X comic. So there's like no pets whatsoever, and it turns out the heroes are being kept in a cage. After more padding, Tom reassures Sonic that he made Tom a better person by teaching him what it was like to be responsible for someone else. After some padding, the doors blow off the holding room because of Maddie using Tails' tool belt. She wasn't able to get anything off of Tails before he got put in a net. All eyes were on him, so people would know anyways. His gadgets were in a bag, so I guess she picked up the bag? I guess the bag really wasn't right next to Sonic after all, so it didn't get caught in the net. That should have been explained. It's nice that she got to be useful, but I have no idea how she got Tails' explosives, which reminds me of Tails' adventure. Maddie's called amazing, and she removes Tom's handcuffs too somehow, and she's kissed. Well, it's the bravery that's amazing. Apparently anyone can use these gadgets, because they're designed by a kid. He asks her how she pulled this off, but never really gets told how. It doesn't answer what I was confused about. After some padding, she runs into a hallway and uses a pulse ray to lift furniture off the ground and bowl over agents, and then in a flash magnetizes their weapons, pulling their blasters away. It's all the more impressive to see a human do this for once. I wonder why Tails doesn't have a tool belt this useful in the games. This is what he's supposed to be doing. It takes advantage of his creative potential. He was going on the adventures with Sonic from the first game he was in. Maddie uses some bolo whips to tangle and trip the new waves of attackers. Whips are hard to use. I assume she got lessons on how to use them years ago. It doesn't need to tell me Sonic was free of his cage before he bounces from agent to agent. Tom runs up to the guarded exit carrying the cage Tails in, and Maddie pulls out what's redundantly said to be her last defensive device. A gumball-sized black ball with a small switch. If Sonic can just bounce from agent to agent, then why doesn't Sonic just attack the guards? For all they know, what she's about to throw at them is going to kill them. They have no reason to not assume that. I'm really glad that something interesting is happening instead of just Sonic attacking everybody. But they should save that gadget for later, just in case. She presses it, but doesn't know she's supposed to stop holding it. Somehow Tails' warning was unheard in the chaos. But why, when there wouldn't be any noise going on? It didn't mention any alarm going on. Some beeping happens, and somehow Maddie asks what that's supposed to mean. She states the obvious, and they run at her, and she shows her compassion again by apologizing before throwing it at them. It'd be faster if she left it at sorry. I hope she shows a flaw at some point in the movie aside from this idiot ball. Because that's not her intentionally being an idiot. It's not a personality trait she's always supposed to have. The ball bursts into a massive bunch of goo that quickly hardens around the agents. Already did an Archie. Bun's already fired stuff like that. After some pointless dialogue, they run out of the helicopter towards a beach, and they already get to the deserted site of the wedding reception. They get told to stop by Walters the gun commander, who Sonic rolls his eyes at. After boring padding, Maddie throws the final goo bomb at him, and somehow when he dodges it, he doesn't just get trapped in giant goo anyways. But the book calls it a massive wave of goo. So if it's massive, it should expand enough to trap him anyways. So they misnamed it. It's so convenient that Walters doesn't shoot any of them instead of taunting them like a cartoon villain. So after padding, Tom gets the time to aim a blaster at Walters, who somehow isn't scared and says it's nothing compared to the authority his badge gives him. Tom shoots a blaster that destroys a wedding cake. According to TV tropes, it was Rachel in the movie. The novelist was smart enough to not make Rachel do anything because nobody liked her in the first film. And this makes him take back his insult and put his hands up. I'm so confused. He would have assumed the blaster was dangerous from the start. The team ties up Walters. I have to assume the stuff they tied him up with was already in the reception area. After some padding, the beacon of green light Eggman caused tells him how to get to the emerald. After some padding, Tom has to convince Sonic that he can beat Knuckles alone, which only makes sense if I was right that his confidence was just an act. Because one fight he almost loses shouldn't be enough to make Sonic like this, let alone make him say that he's just a kid, which contradicts how he talked earlier. So after that's finally over, Sonic hugs those two goodbye and runs across the ocean. After some padding, Tails gets inspired enough to want to help him when he'd know he's too hurt to be worth it. He starts kicking the door of his cage just as Sonic runs away and hoarsely calls out for him to wait for him. Tom eventually puts his arm around his shoulder, and there's some more padding like pointless narration. Just as he reaches the edge of the island's whirlpool, he loses his footing underneath him for the first time and hits the water at over 300 miles an hour face first, magically not getting hurt as much as he should. And why was he moving at only 300 miles an hour? Like a skipping stone, he skates off the surface and into the air. Somehow. He passes out and eventually stands up on a rocky surface. After some padding, he jumps down a hole and lands on a slick patch of stone and starts riding down pouring water on it. Eventually he lands in a big entrance to the labyrinth with a giant owl statue above him. After some padding where Sonic stops to consider where he should go first when there's no indication of which path is better. He repeatedly discovers traps set in every path. He eventually decides to run all over the labyrinth, outrunning all of them. He would have just done this in the first place. The traps are all stereotypical Indiana Jones temple traps, who cares? He ends up riding stone blocks on lava rivers, which I've already seen now as CH in a volcano, until they get eaten up. Which tries to be realistic, but they have to be made of an alien sort of stone that magically prevents the heat of the lava from killing anyone who stands near it and overheating any surface that's riding in it. He swings on a redundantly described vine over the worst of traps. None of this feels like anything I didn't already see in that Archie comic where he went through a temple like this. He kicks down a crumbling wall, which could have been written more briefly, and sees the Emerald's beacon radiating in the center of the room, which has Knuckles and Eggman in it. Obviously, it's awesome that the emerald's indoors, because it's hidden better that way. And of course, there's a lot of padding because characters insist on bickering with each other despite being enemies who refuse to listen to reason. A big spiked wrecking ball bursts through the wall behind them, demolishing the support pillars of the room. Sonic explains his presence by saying he was wondering where that went and jumping out of the way. And there's some more padding, during which he makes this sickeningly lame speech that he believes in his loved ones and they believe in him, which Sonic, the paragon of coolness, should never be saying. And the wrecking ball keeps damaging the place the whole time the scene drags out with its unengaging dialogue and unimaginative fighting. At least what the wrecking ball's doing seems new. Eventually, Sonic warns Knuckles that Eggman's stealing the emerald, and isn't believed. But when he tells him to look, he somehow does look this time. After redundant narration, the Master Emerald embeds itself in Eggman's chest, just like when that Chaos Emerald did it to Mammoth Moggle. If it's a good enough idea, it's fine for it to be used again. Eggman going super is a fantastic idea, making him more capable and respecting his status as the main villain. So he's the best person to reuse this idea for. I would have been amazed if this was the first time I saw it happen. Instead it was just like, oh that's neat, when I heard about it from reviews. There's some filler where Knuckles and Eggman talk to each other boringly, until Eggman lifts an arm and shoots a force blast through the ceiling and flies upwards. This being the only thing that was better about this scene they're ripping off from Sonic 3. There's pointless narration, and he ripples with green energy that's said to be able to remake the world. Why doesn't he do it as soon as he's done laughing if he wants to do that? He can't want to do it that much. His laughter goes through the chamber as the columns start collapsing.